I, a 31-year-old male, have been married to my wife, a 29-year-old female, for 5 years now. We met at this hipster indie music festival, where I was pretending to know all the obscure bands, and she was pretending not to notice my dad bod. Somehow, this gorgeous marketing executive with perfect hair in a corner office decided that my collection of graphic tees and ability to cook pasta was husband material. Our relationship was solid for those first few years. We had a good balance going. I've always been the creative type and pretty good in the kitchen, so I handled most of the cooking and home stuff, not because I was some pushover, but because I actually enjoyed it and worked from home half the time anyway. I'm that guy who gets YouTube recommendations for obscure cooking techniques and actually uses them. My smoked brisket is legendary among our friends, just saying. Meanwhile, she was killing it at her marketing job, bringing home a bigger paycheck than my graphic design gigs. She had the corporate connections that occasionally helped me land some sweet freelance work too. I had flexibility, she had stability. I brought creativity, she brought structure. We complemented each other well. We split decisions pretty equally too. Big purchases, vacations, that kind of stuff was always a team effort. I planned most of our date nights because I'm spontaneous like that, and she appreciated not having to make more decisions after a day of corporate meetings. On weekends, we'd switch it up. She'd cook her grandmother's secret recipes while I handled the yard work. It all felt balanced, like we each brought something valuable to the table. We had a decent bedroom life too. Nothing that would make it to the hub sites, but regular and mutually satisfying. I always made sure she was taken care of first, if you catch my drift. Not to brag, but I thought we had the physical connection part pretty much nailed down. But something started changing about a year ago. Small stuff at first that I didn't really pay attention to. She'd get annoyed if I made plans without running it by her first. She'd make these little comments about my friends being immature or my hobbies being a waste of time. I just brushed it off, thought maybe work was stressing her out or something. Then, last Tuesday, everything changed. I was feeling in the mood after we both got home from work. I leaned in to kiss her cheek while she was checking emails on the couch. She immediately pushed me away. Not a big deal, not everyone's in the mood all the time. But then she gives me this ice-cold look and says something I'll never forget. Intimacy is off the table until you obey me. I literally laughed out loud, like, who says something like that? Had to be a joke. Obey you? What is this, some role-play thing? I asked, still thinking she was messing around. Her face was completely serious, not even a hint of a smile. I'm completely serious. I've been thinking about our relationship dynamics, and I need you to start respecting my boundaries and authority. I was so confused I didn't even know what to say. What are you talking about? What boundaries have I crossed? That's when she drops it on me. You accepted your friend's invitation to your college buddy's dinner without discussing it with me first. For context, my best friend since freshman year texted about dinner Thursday. Our crew meets up every few months for dinner, just catching up, talking fantasy football, complaining about work. I'd mentioned to the wife earlier that day about the plan, didn't think it required a formal consultation or whatever. Are you for real right now? I asked. It's just dinner with the guys, same guys I've been friends with for over a decade. She crossed her arms and leaned against the doorframe like she was posing for a dramatic photo shoot. It's not about the dinner. It's about respecting my input in decisions that affect us both. How does me grabbing wings with the guys for a couple hours on a Thursday affect us both? I asked, genuinely confused. Our time together is limited with our work schedules. When you make unilateral decisions about your availability, you're taking away from our quality time, she explained, like she was talking to a child who couldn't grasp a simple concept. That's when it clicked. This wasn't the first time she'd gotten irritated about me doing my own thing, but it was definitely the first time she'd straight up weaponized intimacy as a control tactic. So you're withholding affection to control me? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. I prefer to think of it as setting boundaries, she replied with this little shrug that made my skin crawl. When you start consulting me before making plans, we can resume normal marital relations. The way she said it, so casual, like she was discussing the weather forecast, made my blood run cold. All those little things I'd ignored started flooding back. How she'd get all quiet and disappointed when I wanted to see my parents instead of just hanging with her. Those passive, aggressive comments. When I played basketball with my buddies on Saturdays, the way she gradually cut me off from friends she called bad influences. Basically anyone who encouraged me to have a life outside of her. I think what freaked me out the most was realizing this wasn't new. Looking back, I can see she'd been conditioning me for years to always prioritize her approval over everything else. She just never stated it so explicitly before that night. I slept on the couch. I chose to sleep there because I couldn't stand lying next to someone who thought love was some kind of transaction, like I had to earn physical affection by being her perfect little puppet. As I lay there trying to fall asleep, I started seeing our whole relationship in a different light. How she'd emotionally check out whenever I didn't do exactly what she wanted, the silent treatment that would last for days until I apologized for stuff that wasn't even my fault, the way she'd criticize my clothes, my friends, my hobbies, basically anything that wasn't centered around her. I always thought we had a good marriage, that I was lucky to have her. Now I was wondering if I'd been wearing blinders this whole time. The worst part? I had no idea what to do next. That night, I paced around our basement for like 2 freaking hours, just trying to make sense of everything. My brain felt like it was short-circuiting. One minute, I'd be rage-scrolling through our old photos, looking for signs I missed. The next, I'd be wondering if I was the crazy one for making such a big deal out of this. Maybe all marriages had these power struggles. Maybe I was just being dramatic. But then I'd remember that cold look in her eyes when she said, "Obey me," and my stomach would knot up all over again. I must have drafted and deleted like 20 texts to my boys that night, but couldn't even put into words what was happening. How do you tell your friends, "Hey, so turns out my wife sees me as some kind of trained pet"? I felt completely lost in my own life. One thing was certain though, something had changed inside me. That ultimatum didn't make me submit like she probably expected. Instead, it woke something up that I'd buried for too long, my self-respect. I fell asleep on that uncomfortable couch with one thought circling in my head. There's only so far you can push someone before they stop moving backward and start pushing back. The next morning was weird. We went through our normal routine, coffee, breakfast, quick kiss goodbye, but my head was spinning with questions. I tried a more diplomatic approach, found her in the kitchen making coffee and decided to extend an olive branch. "Hey, about last night, maybe we should talk about what's really going on. Is something bothering you at work or did I do something else I'm not aware of?" I asked, trying to keep my tone neutral. She barely looked up from her phone. "If you can't understand why making plans without consulting me is disrespectful, then we have bigger problems than I thought. I mentioned the dinner to you earlier that day," I reminded her, "but that's not even the point. The whole obey me thing seems extreme for something so small. That's what I'm trying to understand." She put her coffee mug down with a little too much force. "It's never just one small thing with you. It's a pattern of disregard. You act like my input doesn't matter. When have I ever made you feel that way? Seriously, give me examples." I was genuinely confused. "Last month, you ordered that new desk chair without asking me first. It was for my office, with my money from that side project. Our home, our money," she corrected with that teacher explaining to a child voice. "And last week, you stayed up gaming until 2 in the morning when you knew I wanted to watch that show together. I asked if you wanted to watch it, and you said you were tired." She crossed her arms. "I was waiting for you to insist, to show that spending time with me was a priority." I stared at her, completely blindsided. "How am I supposed to know that if you literally say the opposite?" "A good husband would know," she replied, grabbing her purse. "I'm going to be late for work. We'll continue this conversation when you're ready to actually listen." And she left, just like that. I stood in our kitchen, feeling like I'd failed some test I didn't even know I was taking. How had I not seen this before? How much of myself had I already given up? And did I even want to save this marriage anymore? I called my buddy to cancel those dinner plans, not because I was giving in to the wife, hell no, but because I needed space to think. When I told her I wasn't going, she gave me this smug little smile that made me want to throw up. "See, that wasn't so hard," she said, running her hand across my shoulder like I was a good dog. "When you consider my feelings, everything works out better for both of us." I just nodded, already making plans in my head. If she wanted to play games with our marriage, she was about to learn I wasn't the pushover she thought I was. For the next few days, I played along with her game, watching her like I was seeing her for the first time. It was like finally putting on glasses after squinting for years. Suddenly, all these patterns I'd missed were crystal clear. At dinner that night, I casually mentioned a design project that might need weekend hours. Her reaction was instant. "You can't possibly be considering that," she said, putting her fork down like I'd suggested selling our kidneys. "We always spend weekends together. That's our time." "The extra money would help with our vacation fund," I pointed out, watching her face carefully. "Money isn't everything," she said, switching to this soft, fake sweet voice I now recognized as pure manipulation. "What's the point of a vacation if we're too disconnected to enjoy it?" Before I'd woken up to her games, I would have immediately backed down, apologized for even thinking about disrupting her precious routine. Instead, I just nodded and changed the subject, making a mental note of how freaking skillfully she turned my career opportunity into me betraying our relationship. That weekend, I made my first power move. I joined a gym, not just any gym, but this hardcore fitness place that my old college buddy owned. I'd always been in decent shape, but decided if I was going to rebuild myself, I might as well start with the physical. When I told my wife I was heading out Saturday morning for a workout, she looked confused. "Since when do you go to the gym?" she asked. "Since today," I said, grabbing my water bottle. "Thought it would be good for me. We usually do brunch on Saturdays," she reminded me, like I might have forgotten our entire routine. "We can do brunch tomorrow," I said with a shrug. "I'll make those pancakes you like." Before she could argue, I was out the door. That first workout kicked my butt, but damn, it felt good to be doing something just for me. I started going to the gym every other day. My buddy set me up with a training program and nutrition plan. Meanwhile, I reconnected with my best friend and explained what was going on at home. "Dude, I was starting to think you'd fallen off the planet," he said, actually concerned. "Everything okay?" "I'm not sure," I admitted. "Things at home have been complicated." She finally showed her true colors. He raised an eyebrow, like he'd been waiting for me to say that. "Yeah, man, I kind of figured something was off. We've all been seeing it for a while." "What do you mean?" I asked, thrown off. He started listing off things I'd either ignored or made excuses for, like how she made a scene at his wedding just because the attention wasn't on her, or that time she conveniently got food poisoning right before our camping trip with the guys, only to make a miraculous recovery when I said I'd stay home with her. "Dude, it's been obvious to everyone but you," he said, not to be harsh, just being real. Hearing it all laid out like that from someone outside the situation hit hard. It was like a switch flipped in my brain. I had to see if he was right. The next day, I decided to test the waters. I told her, didn't ask, told her, that I was meeting my friend for lunch the next day. She went nuclear. "So this is how you respond to my concerns, by deliberately defying me?" "I'm not defying you," I said, keeping my cool. "I'm catching up with a friend." "That's normal human behavior. Normal people consult their spouses before making plans," she snapped. "Consult or get permission," I fired back, because those are very different things. Her eyes narrowed dangerously. "If you leave this house tomorrow, don't expect anything from me for a very long time. Just know that bedroom access will be denied until further notice." There it was again, the threat, using intimacy as a control tool. But this time, instead of fear, I felt weirdly free. Her power over me only existed because I valued getting physical more than my freedom. What would happen if I changed that equation? "I can live with that consequence," I said, shocking both of us with how calm I sounded. For a split second, panic flashed across her face. The first real emotion I'd seen from her in days. She recovered quick, her expression hardening. "We'll see how long you last before you come crawling back," she said, turning away. "You always do." That night, I scrolled through old photos from when we first got together. Had there been warning signs from day one? Had I ignored red flags because she was hot and made me feel special when I did exactly what she wanted? The truth hit me like a truck. Our entire relationship was built on an uneven power dynamic that I just accepted. But now that I could see it, there was no going back. This pattern was ending one way or another. Lunch with my buddy felt like breathing fresh air after years in a basement. For 2 whole hours, I talked without calculating every word. No strategic omissions to avoid disapproval, just actual conversation. "You seem different," he said as we finished eating. "More like your old self." "I'm starting to remember who that guy was," I admitted. When I got home, she was waiting, standing all rigid with barely contained rage. I braced myself for the fight, but instead of engaging, I just smiled and walked past her to my home office. "That's it?" she called after me. "Nothing to say for yourself?" I turned, keeping my face neutral. "I had lunch with a friend. It was nice. There's nothing more to discuss." Her mouth opened and closed like a fish. I'd gone off script. She needed me to either apologize or fight back. Either would confirm she still controlled my emotions. Over the next few days, I started what I privately called my silent resistance strategy. Instead of directly challenging her, I just quietly took back pieces of my independence without making a big deal about it. And with a little discipline, I completely transformed my life. I was hitting the gym 5 days a week now and starting to see actual results. My buddy had me on this protein-heavy diet and strength training program. I'd lost 15 pounds of fat and was gaining muscle. I started dressing better, too. Ditched the baggy jeans and graphic tees for clothes that actually fit. At work, I began networking more aggressively, volunteering for high-profile projects instead of just accepting whatever was handed to me. I updated my portfolio and LinkedIn profile. I was laying groundwork, though the wife didn't realize it yet. I also reopened my personal bank account that I'd had before we got married. Not to hide money, but to create some financial breathing room after seeing how ticked off she got whenever I bought anything without consulting Her Majesty first. Each little act of independence was met with escalating tactics, tears, accusations, guilt trips, and, of course, continued intimacy embargo. But something weird was happening. With each day, her leverage was getting weaker. By taking physical affection off the table, she'd accidentally broken its hold over me. The initial frustration gave way to clarity. I realized how much of what I did was just to keep her happy enough to be intimate with me, to validate me. Without that reward system, I could finally see the massive price I'd been paying. 2 weeks into my quiet rebellion, she switched tactics. I came home from the gym one night to find her wearing this skimpy outfit, candles lit everywhere, total seduction mode. "I've been thinking," she said, her voice all fake sweet. "Maybe I overreacted about some things. We don't need to be in this standoff anymore." I recognized the move immediately, the carrot after the stick failed. She was offering a temporary surrender to get me back under control. Once I was back under her spell, all the conditions would gradually return. "I appreciate the gesture," I said carefully, "but I think we need to address the underlying issues before jumping back into physical stuff." Her seductive smile faltered. "What issues?" "I'm trying to move past this." "That's just it," I replied. "Moving past something requires acknowledging it first. We haven't talked about why you felt it was appropriate to use our intimate life as a control mechanism." For just a second, the mask slipped, a flash of cold calculation in her eyes before she recovered. "You're overthinking this. I was upset. I said something I didn't mean. Can't we just forget it?" "Actually, I don't think you said anything you didn't mean," I countered. "I think you expressed exactly how you view our relationship, and that's what we need to discuss." She abruptly stood up, abandoning the whole reconciliation act. "So now you're a relationship expert, analyzing my words like some therapist?" "No," I said calmly, "just someone who's finally paying attention." That night, as she slammed doors and made a big show of being ticked off, I felt something unfamiliar taking root. Not anger, not resentment, just indifference. Her approval, her disapproval, her tactical affections, they were losing their grip on me. I fell asleep with a realization that would have terrified me just weeks earlier. I was ready to lose this marriage if saving it meant losing myself. 3 months into my glow to up era, as my buddy jokingly called it, I was a different person, physically and mentally. I dropped more pounds, gained visible muscle definition, and had completely overhauled my wardrobe. At work, I'd landed a major client that put me on the company radar. But the biggest changes were invisible: the confidence, the mental clarity, the refusal to be manipulated. That's when my escape plan really started taking shape. I'd been secretly applying for jobs in Seattle, far enough away to make a clean break, but still on the West Coast, where the design industry was thriving. I'd always wanted to work for one of the major tech companies up there, and my updated portfolio was getting serious attention. The email landed on a random Wednesday morning. A major tech company's Seattle office wanted me to head their UX design team, permanent position with relocation assistance. The salary was nearly double what I was making now, but more importantly, distance, 800 miles of separation, a legit reason to hit the reset button. I forwarded the email to my personal account before she could spot it on our shared home computer. That evening, I casually dropped it into conversation, watching her reaction like a hawk. "Company in Seattle reached out. Might be a shot at advancement," I casually said. She smiled, like it was our win. "A promotion would be great for us." "Yeah, us, even when it was clearly my career. It would mean more responsibility, maybe a change in environment," I added. Her smile faded. "As long as it doesn't mess with our home life. You tend to withdraw when overworked, right?" What she calls withdrawing, I call having boundaries. I stayed vague on purpose. Then, that weekend, I dropped the real bomb. Public place, calculated timing. "About that job, it's in Seattle." Her fork hit the plate. "Seattle, as in Washington? That's the one. You seriously want to move across the country? It's permanent with relocation. A big step. And what about me? Our life here? Did that cross your mind?" Not once did she ask what it meant for me, just her routine, her comfort zone. "I figured we could treat it like an adventure," I said. "You always say you want to see more of the country." "For vacation, not to uproot my entire life. You'd find work. Seattle's crawling with marketing gigs." Her eyes narrowed. "You've planned this out without me. I'm telling you now, deadline's in a week. There is no decision. We're not going. End of story." Old me would have folded. Instead, I met her stare and said, "It might be the end for you, but I haven't decided yet, and when I do, it'll be based on my future." She froze. This wasn't about a job anymore. It was a direct hit to her control. "If you take that job, I won't come with you," she warned. "Cool," I said calmly. "That's your call." Game flipped. That night, while she was sleeping, I sat in my office, calculating finances, researching apartments in Seattle, making lists of what I'd take and leave behind. The more real the possibility became, the lighter I felt, like gravity itself had less hold on me. The next morning, the HR director from the tech company called with news they needed an answer within 48 hours. "I'll let you know tomorrow," I promised, feeling weirdly calm about the whole thing. After hanging up, I found the wife waiting in the doorway, arms crossed, expression unreadable. "Who was that?" she demanded. "HR from the Seattle job. They've moved up the decision deadline." She crossed her arms tighter. "And what are you going to tell them?" I looked at this woman I'd spent years trying to please, and felt something final snap inside me. "I'm going to tell them yes," I said, the words coming out not as a challenge but as a simple fact. "I'm accepting the position." Her reaction wasn't immediate. Instead, she stared at me with this expression I'd never seen before. A mixture of disbelief, rage, and something else, fear. The control she thought was unbreakable was slipping through her fingers. "You're bluffing," she finally said, her voice weirdly calm. "You wouldn't throw away our marriage for a job." "I'm not throwing away anything," I replied. "I'm accepting a career opportunity. Whether that ends our marriage is entirely up to you." She laughed. "So now I'm the unreasonable one for not wanting to uproot my entire life because you've got some wild hair about Seattle? You're unreasonable for assuming I would automatically decline a life-changing opportunity without discussion," I clarified. "For thinking your comfort automatically outweighs my ambitions. For believing you have veto power over my career decisions. That's what marriage is," she exclaimed, her voice rising. "Compromise, consideration, putting the relationship first. Compromise goes both ways." I clapped back. "And when was the last time you compromised on anything that mattered? When did you put my needs ahead of your preferences?" She recoiled, like I'd slapped her. "I've sacrificed everything for this relationship." "Name one thing," I challenged. "One significant sacrifice you've made that wasn't ultimately about maintaining your preferred status quo." Her silence said more than any answer could have. She paced the living room, recalibrating her approach. "Let's calm down," she said finally, her tone shifting to conciliatory. "We're both saying things we don't mean. Let's take a step back and discuss this rationally tomorrow." It was her standard playbook: delay, diffuse, then redirect once emotions had settled. But I was done playing her games. "There's nothing more to discuss," I said firmly. "I've made my decision. I'm moving to Seattle next month. You're welcome to join me or not. That's your decision to make." "If you do this," she said, her voice dropping to a dangerous whisper, "there will be no coming back from it. You understand that, right?" I nodded. "I understand completely. I know you're still choosing this job over me, over everything we've built." That framing, that I was choosing a job over her, crystallized exactly what was wrong with our entire relationship. In her mind, any choice that didn't prioritize her was a betrayal. "I'm choosing myself," I clarified, probably for the first time since we met. God, the look on her face, if looks could kill, I'd be 6 feet under. Something snapped in her. She lost it and started yelling. "You selfish jerk," she screamed. "After everything I've done for you." I remained still, refusing to engage with the chaos she was creating. This, too, was familiar, manufacturing a crisis to distract from the core issue, to recast herself as the victim. "I've managed your life," she continued, tears streaming now. "I've shaped you into something better than you were. Without me, you'd still be that directionless, spineless loser I found." In those few sentences, she revealed more truth than in years of carefully crafted manipulations. She hadn't wanted a partner, she'd wanted a project, a possession, something to validate her own importance. "Thank you for your honesty," I said quietly. "That clarifies a lot." My calm reaction only fueled her fury. She stormed to the dining room and flipped our actual table, sending plates and glasses crashing to the floor. "There," she screamed. "Is that what you wanted? Tables flipped, everything destroyed?" I looked at the overturned furniture, the shattered porcelain, the physical manifestation of her crumbling control, and felt a strange sense of peace. "Sometimes things need to break before they can be rebuilt properly," I said. I walked past her to our bedroom and began packing a suitcase. She followed, alternating between threats and pleas, promises and accusations. I continued methodically, sorting through my belongings, separating what I would need immediately from what could wait. "Where are you going?" she demanded as I zipped the suitcase closed. "My buddy's place for tonight," I answered. "I'll make arrangements for the rest of my things later. You walk out that door, and I'll change the locks," she threatened, blocking my path. "That would make it easier to justify breaking the lease," I noted practically, "but it's your call." As I moved toward the door, her final desperate tactic emerged. She collapsed to her knees, sobbing, grasping at my clothes. "Please," she begged, her voice breaking. "I'll do anything. We can work through this. I'll go to therapy. I'll be better." For a moment I hesitated, old patterns of responsibility tugging at me. Then I gently removed her hands from my clothes. "I hope you do get help," I said sincerely, "but not for me, for yourself." I walked out the door with nothing but a suitcase, and this weird feeling of freedom I hadn't felt in years. The next few weeks were a blur of legal conversations and logistics. I stayed at my buddy's place while setting up the Seattle move. She alternated between rage, sending me novel-length texts about what a terrible person I was, and bargaining, promising everything would be different if I came back. I hired a lawyer who helped me navigate the separation process. We had no kids, thank goodness, but untangling our finances was still complicated. She fought me on every single thing, from who got the coffee maker to how we'd split the retirement accounts. What surprised me most was how many people in our social circle had apparently seen this dynamic all along. Friends I hadn't spoken to in months reached out with supportive messages like, "Finally, man," and "been waiting for you to see it." My parents, who had always been oddly reserved around her, admitted they'd been worried for years but didn't want to interfere. "You seemed happy," my mom said, "but you also seemed smaller somehow, less yourself." The day I accepted the Seattle job offer was the day I filed for divorce. It wasn't out of spite, it was just time to make everything official. When I told her through my lawyer, she sent a single text: "You'll regret this when you're alone and realize what you threw away." I looked at that message for a long time before responding, "I'd rather be alone and whole than together and hollow." She didn't reply. The divorce finalized faster than expected. Once she realized I couldn't be manipulated into coming back, she took most of the furniture. I took my freedom. Fair trade. I kept up the gym habit, even started training for a half marathon, something I never would have done in my old life. Lost 40 pounds total and actually have visible abs now. Who knew they were hiding under there? About 3 months after moving to Seattle, I met someone. Wasn't even remotely looking for a relationship. My buddy from work literally had to drag me to this community art class because he didn't want to go alone. "Dude, it's just painting. There's literally no downside," he insisted. I reluctantly agreed just to shut him up. So there I was, absolutely butchering what was supposed to be a landscape painting, when this beautiful woman next to me starts laughing at her own equally tragic artwork. "I think mine looks like a drunk toddler painted it," she said, turning her canvas toward me. "Well, mine looks like that same toddler's imaginary friend did it," I replied, showing her my disaster. "She's an elementary school teacher with an actual personality of her own, not one crafted to impress others. No designer clothes or power moves, just this genuine warmth and a wicked sense of humor. We were the worst painters in the class, but ended up grabbing dinner after and talking until the restaurant closed. The biggest difference? When I tell her I'm meeting up with my buddies or want to try a new hobby, she gets excited for me instead of making me feel guilty. When she's busy with school stuff, I give her space instead of demanding attention. We respect each other's independence while still choosing to be together. Revolutionary concept, right? I was hesitant to jump into anything after my marriage disaster, but she never pushed. "We're just two people getting to know each other," she told me. "No pressure, no expectations." The weird part was realizing this is what normal, healthy relationships actually feel like. That night, I met friends for dinner. People who knew pieces of my story but never defined me by it. My new girl was there too, fitting in perfectly, like she'd known them forever. As we planned an upcoming hiking trip, she reached across the table and gently placed her hand over mine, giving it a light squeeze, not possessive or demanding, just a simple "I'm here" kind of touch. It was such a small gesture, but worlds different from my ex, who'd grab my arm to steer me around social situations like some kind of trained animal. She must have noticed my brief zone out because she leaned in slightly and asked, "You okay?" Quietly, no accusation in her voice, just genuine concern. "Better than okay," I replied honestly, just realizing something. What hit me was simple yet profound: intimacy, real intimacy, isn't a bargaining chip. It isn't something to be earned through obedience or withheld as punishment. True intimacy comes from mutual respect, from the freedom to be completely yourself and still be valued. My ex declared intimacy off the table until I obeyed her. In response, I hadn't just flipped that table, I'd built an entirely new one, solid and balanced, with room for people who understand the difference between love and control. As I raised my glass in a toast to future adventures, I silently thanked my ex for the ultimatum that finally set me free. Sometimes the worst things that happen to you lead you exactly where you need to be.